Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking.
Today we install Warmboard boiler.
Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today it's all about the Warmboard boiler installation. Now up at the project, we've got all the piping installed, the manifolds installed, and they've been under pressure for a couple months now, actually. But now we got all of this stuff needs to go up there, and this big crate has the boiler in it. So yeah, let's get the forklift, come in here and grab this thing, and let's install this boiler. Let's get started. Now the nice thing about Warmboard, from what I've seen so far, it comes with really good instructions. Now obviously my videos are for entertainment purposes only, but I'm going to show you step by step how easy this is to install. And right here you have all your actuators. Right here you have really nice digital thermostats. You have your control board, which is Wi-Fi. The nice thing about all the thermostats is they're all Wi-Fi, so there's no wires that are going from your thermostats to the boiler. They're going to come over this Wi-Fi. Now the only thing that when I first heard that they were Wi-Fi, I thought they were battery operated Wi-Fi that didn't need power, but each thermostat needs power, so I'm going to do some special little tricks to put them in the right spot and get power to them, but that's not going to be hard either. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to set all of our parts aside, and we're going to get this boiler opened up and then hung on the wall. Now, what I'm doing, so I've got the Warmboard boiler here, but I'm also going to incorporate a Navion tankless water heater into the whole system. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some water from my tankless water heater to the boiler, but I'm also going to share the vent. It's got an intake and an intake and an outtake vent for the boiler and the tankless water heater. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate them both together so that I can just have two pipes going to the outside. Anyway, this thing looks very well crated up, so let's get this uncrated and we'll get it installed in the room, and then we'll also install the tankless Navion and get them all lined up and see if we can't get this thing hooked up. Right off the bat, I can tell you everything was very well packaged. Everything that I've purchased from Warmboard has been really professionally put together. And the only thing that I would tell you about this boiler is don't do what I did. I installed this by myself because I'm just by myself up here working, but it's really too heavy. It actually took me, well, you'll see in this video, it took me a couple tries to get this up in the air. But right here, I basically flip it sideways and check the bracket on the back to see, I needed to get the mounting. And also I basically looked up the clearances for the side walls because I wanted to have this as close to the wall as possible on the right side. And it turned out it was zero clearance on that right side. So right here, I've got the bracket in front of me, and it was just a matter of going in there, measuring, and then figuring out how to mount this on the wall. Once I figure out how the bracket mounts, I kind of figure out where I want the bottom of the boiler to be. And then I go in my shop and I make some, I cut some pieces of wood
to go across the back that I would be able to bolt the boiler to. And basically what I did is I just took some 2x8 material, ripped it down a little smaller, cut it to size, and I ripped it on my table saw. And then what I did was I routered all the edges so they'd be kind of clean and smooth. And I basically needed two pieces. I was going to have one of the pieces go all the way across the top so I could mount the boiler and the water heater on this same board. And right here you can see I'm kind of checking where the studs are. I've got a magnet that I use to kind of find the studs, and basically I kind of go around and figure out, okay, how high is this boiler going to be up there? Where's the studs? And then I'm pre-screwing screws into the piece of wood that's going to go up there so that I can screw this piece of wood on the wall. Once I get the board all screwed onto the wall, I mount the boiler bracket on there. And once the boiler bracket was on there, it was time to get this boiler up in the air and on that bracket. And this was the first attempt. You got to remember, I'm by myself, it's 150 pounds. So the first attempt did not go, but the second attempt, I was able to muscle that thing onto the bracket. And you can see it's pretty nice right there next to that wall. And it had, basically you could have zero clearance to the right or the left, and you could have your pipes going out the left or the right side. Now, before I start piping any of the stuff, I wanted to get this Navion heater up in the air also. So I kind of figured out that I wanted it to be pretty close to the boiler so I could possibly have a cabinet or some storage on the left of these two boilers. So I kind of checked the clearances, and I wanted to have enough room for the pipes to come out of the boiler on that left side. So I left a little bit of room in between there, and then I kind of figured out, you know, where I wanted to mount this bracket for the Navion heater. And then basically I mount this bracket on, and then it was a matter of installing the heater. Now the Navion heater wasn't very light either. It was actually, it was pretty heavy too, but it went up easier than the boiler. And basically right there, I got both units kind of where I want them. I've got them both mounted secure. And then it was a matter of studying all the plans and start installing all the piping. Now I basically started by setting out all the parts. You have valves, pumps, condensate, filters, and I basically laid them all out, and then I started with the gas line. I thought, the gas line's all steel, so I'm gonna put that in first. And basically I ran a flex out of the boiler and then basically piped it down. I have an 1.25 inch line down below to feed both the boiler and the water heater. So basically, yeah, that's what I started with. I started with the gas, and it went pretty smoothly actually. I put a valve on the main gas line down below coming in, and then I put a valve on, a shutoff valve on the boiler and the water heater also. Here you can see I'm finishing up the first part of this install, which is the gas line. And basically on any threaded fittings I do, I'll put Teflon paste on the threads, then I'll put Teflon tape over the paste, and then put Teflon paste on top of the Teflon tape. And that's always been successful for me. Let me know in the comments how you do it, but I don't, it's rare that I have any leaks using that system. And right here I'm just putting the final touches on the gas. Once I get all the gas hooked up, I turn it on, and I turn all these gas lines on, and I get some soapy water, and I test all the fittings for any leaks at all. And it was pretty rock solid. Everything worked out good. And then it was time to move on to the water. All the water pipes I was going to run in solid copper. I'm using Type L copper, and basically I decided to hook up the water heater first, but I also needed to have a T coming off the main water supply that ran to the heater to be as a filler for this boiler. not, it wouldn't fill all the time, but you needed to have a line going down there to the boiler. And basically I laid out all of the fittings and stuff according to the directions from Warmboard. And I basically just started soldering all this stuff together. And I tried to prefab as much as stuff. I have a little like vise stand that I that I can use to hold things. And I tried to prefab as many pieces as I could so that I wouldn't be, making any burn marks close to the wall or anything. I wanted it to be really clean. So basically, I read the plans and figure out the piping, and basically you have a supply and a return, and both the supply and the return have ball valves and hose bibs to be able to flush and fill your radiant heat floor. And they also have it also has a fill line, which is what I'm working on right now, putting a T in there. And then the fill line has a ball valve, and then also it goes down and goes through a check valve, and then it goes through a pressure regulator, and then connects back into the return. And then basically I solder all that stuff up together. And then once all the copper is done, I'll show you right here. Here you can see me prefabbing some of the valves with some of the parts on them using this vise. And that was just a little easier. I could make a pretty big piece and then cool it off and then take it over there and get it installed. And here I'm putting the final touches on the copper. Basically, it has a vent line on the check valve. And once I get all that on, it's time to do the vent up top. And I'm basically going to combine the boiler vent, the boiler vent's a 3-inch vent, and the Navian water heater vent is a 2-inch vent. Now these are both condensate units, so the heat's not as much as a regular water heater. Now before I do the vent, I need to do the temperature relief, and it's going to tie into both. So this is the TMP valve for the boiler, and it's going to go across and down right between the two units, and then it's going to grab the temperature relief of the Navian water heater, and basically I'm going to take them both and send them outside. Once I get the pressure relief valves all tied in and run outside, it was time to run this vent. And the water heater has a 3-inch, or the boiler has a 3-inch vent, and the water heater has a 2-inch vent. So I'm using all Schedule 40 PVC, and I'm going to tie both these together and run them outside so that I only have 2 pipes going to the outside of the building, which I thought would work pretty good. And it seemed like that was a good way to go, actually. And right here you can see I'm using Schedule 40 PVC. I've got a heel outlet on the top of that 3-inch one, and this pipe right here is the actual exhaust for both units. And yeah, right here. Now I already had a pre-done hole up there, so one of the holes was already done, and I was easily able to go outside with it. The next one, I got to drill a hole through the building, and I got to make sure that I make it between the studs. And I kind of almost messed up on that. I thought I had measured properly, but when I started drilling that hole to go to the outside, I actually hit the stud just barely. But I just moved the hole over a little bit, and it ended up working out really well. I wanted to have a little slope on these pipes, not too much, but enough to have a little bit of a slope. They don't really require it. It doesn't seem to require. These are direct. You can direct vent these out the side. So right here, I'm finishing up the final touches on the vent, and yeah, I actually think it came out pretty clean. I might get some plastic paint and paint these pipes later on, but yeah, right there, that's basically connected, and I just need to drill a hole through the wall and get this thing outside. Now at this point, the heater, or the boiler and the water heater, are getting really close to being done. basically I got to finish getting this vent out the wall, and then the next thing will be basically hooking up the condensate line. Right there you can see I'm just finishing up this last piece. And yeah, now what I'm going to do on those two pipes going out the wall is I'm going to get some stainless steel collars that'll sleeve right through the wall to give it a little added protection. And here you can see I've got the whole thing hooked up. I've actually, right here, I basically put it in construction mode and I'm turning it on. And at this point, these things are completely hooked up. The boiler's working. It's actually way quieter than I thought. And I'm adjusting some of the flow on each of the tubes, and I just let this thing run. And yeah, so currently we're in construction mode, and the next video I'll show you once we get all of the thermostats installed, where we can switch over to the house mode. And yeah, that's how to install a Warmboard boiler with a water heater in combo. And let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah, the piping, everything came out really nice. I actually didn't have any leaks to worry about, and I tested it about half a day on this day, and it really worked out good. Here's a little better look at the vents coming out of the outside, which I still got to put some stainless steel collars on. Here's the TMP coming out of the outside. Here's the upper vents going from the boiler and the water heater to the outside. And here you can see all the piping completed. There you can see the condensate going into the condensate filter, all the piping down here. Anyway, everything worked out really good. It's in construction mode right now, testing, and it's been working great. Next up, when we get all the thermostats installed, we'll hook up the actuators and test all the individual systems. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next time. Later.
There he goes, it's a working man. He's trying to make a living any way he can. And he'll break his back for $1 or $2. Oh, there ain't no shame in what he do.